Please start. Okay, Colonel Mike, go ahead, rock.
The governor's office and his staff all of a sudden is very busy. So I don't know if we're going to get any kind of a reception. We'll go in and at least announce ourselves, give them the pala that we have, and let them know our concerns. So right now, we've contacted the media, and I guess the bus is stuck someplace in traffic. I'm not quite sure. But they said they're coming. So we're going to go in and do whatever we're going to do, and then we're going to come back outside and do a formal kind of a press conference and present the media with all of the information that we have in our pala. And then we'll have a legal explanation, archaeological explanation, and a Hawaiian point of view on this whole situation. So we're just going to wait a little while till at least one of the stations who said they're on their way shows up. And then we're going to go inside and we'll come back outside. So the purpose is to shine light on this whole thing. Normally when the governor gets a bill, the public has 6 weeks to give input. He decides he's going to sign it right away. He signed some other bills right away, but he had big ceremonies. This time there was no ceremony. I think he was in his closet signing the bill. So I don't know, let's see what the heck's going on with this. So one of the goals is to shine some light on this whole situation. We have really good people that are going to be speaking with good information about what this really means to the Hawaiians and what this means to the entire community. When the governor does this kind of radical bill in response to whatever profit development motivations we have now. So, just be a little bit homo be patient a little while this thing develops. And when we do have the press conference, let's all kind of like stand together and show some support to whoever is going to be doing the speaking. Okay? Right on. Alright. So, read out pala. Everybody's got copies? No? We share the copies so that people know basically what we've put together. 1,200 signatures, we could have got more, but we signed it as fast as we could have signed it, I guess. So we couldn't get more signatures. So we're going to present this to the governor, via his staff, and whoever we can present it to inside. Okay, so can we all just go in right now and present this? Sure.
Hey there. Hi.
How are you?
There's no way to get anybody to receive this.
I'm sorry. I could take it for you.
Okay. We'll wait for everybody to come in. So we're here today from the Malama Coalition, and we're hoping to see the governor to present him with some of our concerns. And we also wanted to present him with a petition of some 1,200 signatures. And we had hoped that we'd have more time to get signatures. We thought we had like about 6 weeks for input into his bills, but he decided to sign it pretty fast. So, but we did get 1,200 signatures, and we're hoping that he could look at some of the comments so that he can understand how people felt about that bill that he signed. And these are some of the concerns that are coming from the Hawaiian community, that are coming from the legal community, and from the archaeologists from that community. So we hope that this gets presented to the governor, so he can see it. And he is more than welcome to read some of the comments so he understands where the people are coming from on this bill that he just signed.
Thank you.
So tell Bruce we're disappointed he's not out here to receive this.
Sorry. I will. As soon as he comes out, I promise.
Tell him we said hello anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll go outside and try to get the guy to stop making so much noise, and we'll do our press conference outside. Okay, we're here today to put together a press conference because we found out through the grapevine, not through legal matters or anywhere else, that the governor had actually signed the bill and created the law for 1171. And there's a lot of people concerned about that, and we wanted to try and put some light on it and to get the public to understand some of the concerns in regards to this bill. We haven't heard the last of it. We're going to be following this bill all the way through his campaigning for his governorship. We're going to try and get a repeal. There might be legal actions, whatever it's going to take to protect our historic sites, to protect our cultural heritage, and to protect our iwi kupuna and the dignity that they deserve. So, in order to get that across, we're going to present some really good factual information. We brought people from the different societies and the legal entities to talk about what is going on with this bill.
Walter, could we ask you a few questions first? Or?
Okay, and then after you can also ask these other guys. Shoot.
Have you polled Senate members or House members about a possible repeal? You know, if there's a 2/3 majority in each chamber for a possible.
Yeah, we had support in the House, and then we lost the votes in the Senate. But if you look at the votes, it was sort of like 8-8, 9. So there's a split going on in there. There's some people who are ambiguous about the whole situation. So there's hope for us to try and change some minds in all of this. It wasn't a solid yes in all of this. And we realized that that bill came from this office. You know, it's a governor's bill. So he's going to fight it, he's going to push it, he's going to do everything in his power to do it. So we're here to say, you know, that bill is, I hate to use the word ridiculous, but it's one way of describing this bill. It wasn't necessary, it's ridiculous, and it's on the backs of the society, especially the Hawaiians.
What would be the basis for a legal challenge? How did the legislature enact this law? I mean, what?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to let the legal guys answer that part. We'll find the Supreme Court, I know, supported the whole idea of not segmenting these things. So we're going to, you know, build upon that action.
Well, this this law now provides, I believe, a huge hole with respect to some of the language that's going to be included in the current law that would allow just about any project to phase its archaeological inventory survey. So there's some significant concerns as it relates to that ability to basically drive just about any project through that loophole. So that could be one of the bases upon which a lawsuit might be filed. But you know, what I want to say is that I'm here as the executive director of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, but also as a descendant of Hawaiians that could be impacted by the amendment to the current law. And our Constitution embodies our shared value of conserving and developing historic and cultural resources within the state for the public good. Our state's Historic Preservation Statute, Chapter 6E of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, was designed to further this constitutional and shared value. In that statute, the legislature proclaimed nearly 4 decades ago that the historic and cultural heritage of the state is among its important assets, and that the public has a vital interest in the proper disposition of the bodies of its deceased persons, which is in the nature of a sacred trust for the benefit of all. Now, in that tradition, and earlier this year, the Hawaii Supreme Court, in its unanimous decision in Kaleikini versus Yoshioka, reaffirmed that these words must and do in fact mean something in practice. The court, in what has become known as the Rail case, concluded that Hawaii's Historic Preservation Statute and its rules establish a sequential approach to the historic preservation review process, which requires the completion of an archaeological inventory survey prior to the approval of a project or the commencement thereof. In a very real way, this case confirmed the shared value of the people of Hawaii, that the protection of burials is so important as to mandate the diligent, proactive process provided for in HRS Chapter 6E and its rules. We've all grown up being taught the lesson that it is important to think before you act, look before you leap, measure twice, cut once. Later on, we were taught to call this informed decision making. The legal review process under Chapter 6E puts these precise lessons into the review process with the intended effect of requiring the identification of significant historic sites in the project areas and the creation of plans to handle the impact of development on such sites, in many cases by preservation in place. This has been the law since 1976. Chapter 6E seeks to capture what the legislature called a sacred trust, that is, the moral, humane, and solemn obligation of protection of those who have provided us with the very foundation upon which we stand. I disagree today with the governor on Senate Bill 1171. That disagreement could, but need not, result in more litigation. The claimed need for Senate Bill 1171 was based upon the real decision's potential impact on many of the Department of Transportation's current projects. We believe those current projects and any future Department of Transportation projects may proceed responsibly and absent undue delay without the broad and all-encompassing reach of Senate Bill 1171. In fact, it's our position that Senate Bill 1171 has no retroactive effect and therefore does nothing for any of the Department of Transportation's current projects. There's a more efficient and effective way of addressing the concerns upon which Senate Bill 1171 is based without impacting the proper protection of EV. We can and must do better than Senate Bill 1171. Diligence is the convergence of mind and soul. We owe this diligence to those upon whose shoulders we stand. While Senate Bill 1171 falls short of such diligence, we recognize and pledge that the work towards such must and will continue. Thank you.
Moses, are you of the mind that you would have to seek desecration of EV KUPUNA before you would file any kind of legal challenge?
I think it all depends on the specific facts of any given case and whether or not we believe that there's a taking advantage of the new law in terms of, if you look at the rail case, it was done in phases, but the city considered it one project. And after the rail decision, the city finished the rest of the AIS in no time at all, such that the only reason there was delay was because the city had attempted to do it in a phased way. So when it comes to looking at whether or not we would wait until desecration occurs, I don't think we need to wait that long if we see a case where the project could have clearly done an archaeological inventory survey in full prior to any commencement of any construction or whatever process that we believe would have been illegal under the previous law.
Didn't the court invite the legislature to solve this inconsistency between state and federal law? So, and isn't your argument more of a political one than a legal one at this point? You have to change the legislature's mind on this?
I think that the Supreme Court was basically telling the city and any other developers that the law as it stands had a good basis for that. And if there are any concerns about the impact that the current law may have on specific projects, such as the projects that the Department of Transportation was concerned about, that there should have been a process done through administrative rulemaking. And that's not changing the law. Right. That's changing how you implement the current law.
What's your name, sir?
Kikuava Kikiloe, President for the Society for Hawaiian Archaeology.
Kikuava, sir?
Kikuava.
What's the time code?
Sorry, I missed you.
That's fine. Kikuava, Kekuewa, Kikiloe, Kikiloe, President for the Society for Hawaiian Archaeology. So I'll just read my statement, I guess. The Society for Hawaiian Archaeology stands in strong opposition to Governor Abercrombie's decision to sign Senate Bill 1171 into law. Our opposition is seen in solidarity with Native Hawaiian groups, architects, archaeologists, both local and national, as well as the general public. We are dismayed that the governor would support such radical changes to historic preservation law that will clearly harm Hawaii's historic and cultural heritage. One of the achievements of the historic preservation community over the past 30 years has been our partnership with developers to protect historic sites and burials. Many of our members have worked for decades within the existing structure of Chapter 6E Hawaii Revised Statutes. We have always been able to complete archaeological inventory surveys in advance and in its entirety for planned construction in both the public and private sectors. The premise that land development and historic preservation can't coexist is a fallacy that is contradicted by this long and successful partnership. The state Supreme Court ruling concerning the rail project helped to put it back on the right track, and in fact is the clearest example that there is no need for any changes to the historic preservation law. Archaeological firms were hired to do the work on a short time frame and completed the AISs required for the entire length of the project thoroughly and in a timely fashion. In addition, Native Hawaiians worked successfully to deal with iwi kupuna discoveries with respect. These drastic changes that were signed into law are a slap in the face of decades of collective effort that built a historic preservation process that clearly worked. The Society for Hawaiian Archaeology, with its 150 members and 25 plus archaeological firms in Hawaii, along with the National Archaeological Societies of 10,000 members, is calling on the legislature to repeal this dangerous law during next year's legislative session. We also urge the public to stand up and speak out on this issue to the governor during his re-election campaign this coming year. Our government and representatives need to understand clearly that the protection of Hawaii's cultural heritage, historic sites, and burials matter to the people of Hawaii. Thank you.
So your name, sir?
My name's Tom Dye. I have a card here I can give you.
Great. 7:30.
Thanks. You know when you roll to. Go ahead, Tom, if you have an opening statement.
I don't have anything prepared, but I do want to follow up on what Kate Kuleva was saying. I'm a professional archaeologist and I've had more than 40 years of experience here. I run my own consultancy, so I work with the historic preservation review process on a daily basis. This bill is totally unnecessary. We don't need it to move forward. We've been successful for the last 30 years in partnering with developers to protect the historic sites here in Hawaii. This law attacks the very foundation of historic preservation. The review process is something that has to be done up front so that planning can proceed in a thoughtful manner. If you cut that out, there's no hope.
Tom, what are your feelings about developers take advantage of this new law? Because wouldn't they be frightened if they start a project in the first phase and then in the second phase, third phase, they find out there's iwi kupuna and the entire project gets bogged down? I mean, what?
I spent 6 years with the Historic Preservation Division in the 1990s, and that's exactly what we were trained to tell developers at that time. You do this up front so that you can plan responsibly, so that you don't hit the kind of roadblocks that Hart hit, where they had at great expense to shut down the project and get back and do what they should have done to begin it.
So can you see any developers really taking advantage of this? I mean, why would they want to take advantage, I guess is my question, if they could be bogged down later on?
You'd have to ask them, the guys that propose this. I don't see any upside to it at all, and I'd like to continue to do what I did with Historic Preservation Division, and which I do with my clients today, which is tell them, don't short circuit the process.
And Tom, the bill specifically says large tracts of land, but it doesn't define exactly what that is. I guess that's something that will be defined in rulemaking, but what's your feeling of what kind of projects this could apply to?
Right now, that loophole is so big you could drive a bus through it, or a train, or whatever you wanted to drive through it. When I look at that, having had experience with the Historic Preservation Division, I can't imagine what kind of rule you're going to write about it.
And so you're the feeling also that this could have been handled, like Derek mentioned earlier, with more rulemaking, perhaps some clarification of the rulemaking?
Well, absolutely. The federal regulations, not the federal law, but the federal regulations have a phasing provision, very tightly circumscribed, very, very tightly circumscribed so that it's not abused. Unlike the law that we have now, which is as open as it could be. These are two different beasts. What the Supreme Court wanted was a rule at the state level that said that DLNR could participate in one of these phased federal projects. That's a simple thing to do. You don't have to craft a law that a bus could drive through.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Jonathan Osorio. I'm a board member of the KAHEA Hawaiian Environmental Alliance. Hello, I'm in agreement with what was said earlier, particularly about the effect and the fact that this law is not needed. Actually, we would go a little further by saying that it appears as though the governor is really doing something that we really hoped he would not do when he was campaigning for governor back in 2010, and that is to actually change the trend of how laws protect Native Hawaiian sites, sacred sites, historic sites. We hope that this governor would be much more careful about development in Hawaii, really see different ways to develop an economy without essentially selling everything in sight, that he would not actually try to speed up the course of development. And unfortunately, that has not been the case. This governor has actually supported policies and laws like Pldc that were intended basically to take the community input out of future developments and place it on the side. And speaking for KAHEA, we really believe that every development, especially large developments, require more public scrutiny, not less. So I'm holding here 1,200 signatures of petitioners. It's all we could gather in the short time between the passing of this law and the governor's signing of this bill, really asking the governor not to sign, not to consent to this. Just a second while I turn off my telephone. In many other arenas, the focus of laws and agreements are changing from what we've actually seen happen here in Hawaii. For instance, internationally, the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples actually stresses the right of Native people to protect their sacred places and for us to have free, prior, and informed consent. This moves away from this, and we really call on the governor to reconsider his signature, and we ask for the repeal of this bill.
Speaking of his signature, were you surprised there was no announcement by the governor's office and folks kind of had to find out about the signing through Crapital?
I was personally surprised, since the governor seems to like to, sort of broadcast when he's at odds with the community, and this is one of those instances when he didn't.
So that concludes the information that we wanted to get out.
Great.
And
Is that the number we go with on the petition, 1,200?
1,200.
1,200.
Yes. And so now, if anybody wants to do a talk story with any of these guys to get some personal responses,
Great.
so we have time to do it. And wanted to thank everybody for coming, especially the media. It's very hard to get the media to come to these kinds of things, so mahalo for coming. All right, thank you very much.
He wants to know
When did you start gathering
when the dates of
signatures?
this- When did you start gathering them?
Tom, when did we start gathering? About 3 weeks? 10 weeks.
About 10 days ago? And primarily folks on Oahu or just all over? All over. Terrific.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
good question.
Good to see you.
Did your homework?
Yeah.
So we stay over here in the governor's office, and a lot of complicated stuff. So to put them in simple words, it's like we have laws that protect us. When I say us, I mean Hawaiians. Protect our culture, protect our heritage, protect our kupuna, the dignity of the kupuna. So So the generation before us made sure that all these protections. So now these corporations come in and they're telling the governor, these things costing us money. So they try them out with the rail, doing segments, so that they spend all the money and then it's too big to fail. So that they have to force us as Hawaiians to give up all our kupuna. The Supreme Court, the only guys in the state now that backing up Hawaiians, it's not the governor, it's not the legislature, it's the Supreme Court. Every time we go to the Supreme Court, they overturn the government, they overturn the agencies, state agencies, and they rule on the side of Hawaiians. So they rule on the side of Hawaiians, says you cannot go make the project and then wait till later and then force the Hawaiians to give up their variance. You cannot. So the governor said, well, yeah, I'm going to make one law that says we can. I'll show you guys. So he get all these agencies, all these merry men in the legislature, and they pass this law. The law will allow them to do things that they're not supposed to be doing, that we're going to try to set up all these years to protect ourselves, our culture. You're going to start dismantling. This is the beginning of the dismantling of these protections. That's how bad this law is. And there is no reason for it. Because before this law came, they would solve all the problems with the rail. He and them will go work, and they will work out all the problems. Never cost big money, all that kind of stuff. There was no problem. So they make the law because they say they had a problem that wasn't there, and now they're going to start using this as a reason to dismantle all the protections for us. That's why we're here today. That's why when the governor's race comes, we cannot let people forget that he's the governor that's starting to dismantle the protections for Hawaiians and their culture. And then when the legislature come back, I hope the Hawaiians will gather together to repeal this law. We cannot allow this to happen and give up, because once this thing goes, it's like a domino effect. So that's why this thing is so important. So get active out there.
And if anybody would like to know more, how can they reach you?
Yeah, easy for reach me. I'm not hiding. Okay? The best way is you go inside this thing called a telephone book. You look Molokai, I get reading, I get my phone number. Okay? And if you read it Akamai, then you can go Facebook, email.
They have a Facebook page too.
It's simple. It's RITTEW@hotmail.com.
Ah, mahalo, mahalo, and thank you for everything you're doing.
In Pono, you're the man.
And we need to learn how to be in reverence again. Reverence with the land, with each other, the sea. It's all interconnected. And I want to see something new.
Mahalo, mahalo. And your name, and is there any way that they can reach you?
Aloha, my name is Havane Rios, and I am from Big Island, Mokunui, from Waimea. And you can buy my songs on iTunes. The Poli'ahui Ke Kapu is being donated to the Mauna Kea Defense Fund. If you don't know about the 30-meter telescope and BLNR's approval, please look it up. It's all over YouTube, it's all over the internet. Contact me if you want to know about it. Contact me if you want to help and donate. My third song, called Okohema Lama Ke Kai, goes to the Protect Koho'olawe Ohana. And this song is to bring awareness about what is going on in Pohakuloa. We don't want the same thing to happen that happened in Koho'olawe to happen to Pohakuloa. There is depleted uranium in our land, in our water, in our air. Be mindful. This song is not on iTunes yet, but it will be on my upcoming CD that hopefully will be released by the beginning of next year. And every song on the CD talks about something that is happening right now that is current, that we are facing as a people. This song, Eola Maunaivi, is about listening to our KUPUNA, listening to the spirit world, connecting back to that, and being in reverence and respect to our land, to each other, to our history. This is so important, to learn respect again. So mahalo nui.